spend a few minutes talking about some Eldon Shamblin rhythm style guitar. I thought I'd use the staple Western swing song "Take Me Back to Tulsa" to demonstrate. I've done a video lesson on this before, using some extended voicings more up the neck. I want to focus now kind of more closer to the first frets of the guitar. So the way I kind of organize and go about doing these types of Eldon Shamblin rhythm passages is I typically work from a framework. So what that means is when I've transcribed and just taken stuff and trying to listen to him, I can hear that he typically sets up his songs and uses those same ideas kind of throughout the songs, and then he'll kind of embellish turnarounds, but typically he'll stick to a certain pattern that he's created. So that's kind of the principle here with this. I'm going to teach a certain pattern, and then we can alter the turnarounds and expand on that. So I'm just going to play a little bit of it in two different positions that he would frequently use, and then kind of break down what I'm doing. So if we're playing in the key of G, it might sound something like this. Now a lower one. Sorry. Alright, so something like that is kind of what I would work from. So really simply, the song is only two chords. It's just a G chord to the D, D to the G. Right, so if you're thinking and visualizing that in your head or writing it on a piece of paper, it'd be 3 bars of the 1 bar of the 5, and then you'd have 3 bars of the 5, 1 bar of the 1. So most basically what he does is works through the chord tones of each chord. So I'm gonna use this lower one for today because, as I said at the beginning of this video, you can go on my YouTube channel and see the one where I primarily use this. So that's on my YouTube channel, but this one's going to be more about playing out of this position. So we're just taking a normal G bar chord that we all know and love, and we're going to work up just going G, and then with the B in the bass, keep the triad on top. And now the beautiful thing about this is, because it's only 2 chords, we can superimpose a quick 4, it's a C, and then a sharp 4. So if you're just playing over G, now with the changes, that's in a ton of tunes, imposed and just written in. So that's a useful change just to know to begin with. So once we get to that C sharp diminished, we can do one of two things. We can either go back to the 1 in the root, right? Or we can go to the 1 with the 5th in the bass. So you could either go slowly, or to the 5th in the bass, has the same effect. So we've got 1, 3 in the bass, 4, sharp 4, 1. So in context now, 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to the 5. So my closest 5 in this sense, we just went, come back to root, now I'm going up to the B, we just use this one again, and now I'm coming right back down to the A, and I'm using this 5 chord. So this is just, you know, our D7 kind of blues chord voicing, but we're putting the A in the bass, so we're just moving the 5th down. So we've got 1 with the 3, 4, sharp 4, 1 with the 3, 5. And this sets up our next 3 bars of 5 into a bar of 1. So let's just do that one more time. We've got G, C, G, 5. And now one or two things can happen here to set up this next bar of 5 chord. We've got 2 more beats, so we can either just vamp on it, which is totally fine, or we can do like a little quarter note fill where we could play. So that's just anticipating this D chord out of this shape right here, right? Take your C, just move it up. So we could go 3, 4, 1 to get in there. So that's by approaching it above the D note. We can approach it below as well, going C, C sharp, D, just like that change we did a second ago. So I'll play through both for you. So from the start, we've got that's one way. The second way would be this. Okay? So those are 2 ways of doing that. The next thing is we got to work down our D chord. So sticking with that descending bass line, which is the majority of this kind of playing, we've got D, D in the bass. Now let's have D with C in the bass. So what I'm doing here is I'm keeping the triad the same on top, but I'm just putting our C there. There are a couple different ways to finger it. That's typically how I do it. Second finger on that C, and then my triad looks like this. And now we're going to put B in the bass. Kind of looks like a B minor 7 chord. And then we can put A in the bass like so, or we can go back to this D7 chord. Like so. So coming into that, or above, I'm sorry, yeah, above. So that's up to that point. Let me play this for you. So we got 1, 2, 1, 2. And now we got 1, 2, 3, 4, back to G. So after we get to this A, what we can do here is either just go back up and play down and land with the B in the bass there, or like so, start on the B and just come down. So from the D's we could do one of 2 things. That's resolving to the 3rd of G, the B note, or we can resolve to the 1. Two different options there. So I'm going to try and play that and see if I can remember all that for you. So it'll sound something like this. 1, 2, a 1, 2. So that is kind of the framework I would work from on that one. And I was mentioning for those just joining at the beginning of the video, from listening to a ton of Eldon Shamblin's playing and trying to learn as best I can off those records where you can actually hear it, it sounds like most of the time he sticks to typically two ideas of how he starts his verses or his bridges. And then really the improv or the more creative aspect of it comes on the turnarounds and the different ways in which connecting. But the framework of like the chord shapes and the ways the chords are either ascending or descending typically stay the same. So I'd encourage you specifically to go listen to that For the Last Time record. and really see if you can hone in on him doing that. I think the first kind of example of that, or the first two examples, were Stale Night, Stay a Little Longer, and San Antonio Rose. That's when I really picked up on, oh, he's kind of keeping to the same thing, but then embellishing a few things. So at least for me, it's nice to have that idea in your head that he was doing that, because it takes all the pressure of trying to come up with something new every time. Plus, it just gives the song just a little more structure if you keep things the same. So that's kind of the framework I would work from here around. Now, let's get into a couple more substitutions. We haven't even really done any substitutions yet, or leading chords. So the probably the most common one that I would do right off the bat is coming from our 1 chord to our 5 chord. And the easiest way that I can connect that is to play 1 sharp diminished or sharp diminished into the 5. And now there's a bunch of theory behind that. I'm not going to go into it here. Check out my course and you can see all that and why that works. But for this instance, and I would say 9 out of 10 instances where you have just a half step to connect chords, you can typically use a diminished chord, and it works just fine. So if we were playing it, we might do something like this. 1, 2, 1, 2. One more time. Diminished. So again, that's acting as a bridge between the G and the D7. Just real quick, I did it up here where you can go G, G, diminished, resolving to the 3rd of D7. All right, so there are multiple places where you can use this kind of stuff. So that's one I would commonly do. I'll do it one more time for you. 1, 2, 1, 2. So that's how I'd approach that one. Another thing that is pretty common in his playing is the movement of 7th chords. So I just did an example of it. He would take like a 7th chord, or just a really, sorry, I should rephrase this. Like on a dominant 7 chord, or a D7 in this example, he would take the chord, right? So we have like a D bar, and then you can move the F sharp and the bass. And he would move that down in whole steps. So it'd be like D to the C, and that's really a C chord, but what's cool is you put it over the D and it implies, the 7th, right? So he just is moving down a shape at a time and then falling back into his G. So what I would say is on these long passages of just 5 chords, before you even try to get any of the fancy substitutions or anything like that, try and figure out where those shapes are on the neck. I'll give you another one. So we have D down to the C, but in my mind I just think of it as D in this case. D. Now I typically don't move this one down to that like open C chord. I typically just put the C in the bass there. But if we were playing up, this is our D chord right here. I'll take the A, right, as the bass note and move that down to the C chord here, but with the G in the bass. And check this out. Moves into that one, falls into that one, and then could resolve to G there. So I'll try and set that up for you. I might do something like this. Then one more time. Oops, sorry. that's something that kind of like blew my mind when I figured that one out, and was like, oh, you can just take on a 5 chord or a dominant chord some of these voicing and just move them down a whole step, and you already have this nice kind of flowing line there. So those are some ideas. And if you have any questions about any of this stuff, please chime in. Take a quick second. So my 2 courses, the first one is really just all the foundations. So it's all these ideas of playing, you know, out of these shapes, ascending and descending, and kind of the common ways in which you would do that. I apply them to 2 tunes, so it's broken into 4 sections. You have the foundations, and then the next section is applying it to Stay All Night, Stay a Little Longer. And then in the next section, we get into kind of more of the jazzier, whatever that means, sounds of Eldon's playing and kind of the frequent things. So specifically talking about kind of the normal harmony of, if you're on like a 4 chord, for example, going back to a 1, I'll do it in G. So if we're on a C, you could do this. Right? So that's that 4 augmented, 4 over the 6, and then the sharp diminished. And that's a common sound in Western swing, and one definitely have to have under your fingers. So I do kind of imply that and talk about that, and then we put that to the tune Bubbles in My Beer. And then this recent course, I'm focused more on taking all those ideas and then throwing in more of the single note stuff. So you saw me do a little bit in here when I do something like and connecting kind of chords with just those either quarter note or eighth note little fills. So that's the first section, and then we apply that to San Antonio Rose. And then the third section of it, I just focus on signature licks that he does, and that's when you really get all the really cool sounding stuff, and kind of probably what we all gravitate towards when we listen to him. And then we apply all of that to Faded Love. And so that's kind of the basis for that. And that's really a combination of things I've taken from the Bob Wills record For the Last Time and Eldon Shamblin's solo record Guitar Genius, and just kind of what I hear that he does multiple times. I'm like, that's probably important, and learn it, and then kind of flesh it out and put that up there for y'all to learn as well. So to give you a little teaser, I'll play a little Faded Love, try to stumble my way through it, and use some of those signature licks, passing notes, all that cool stuff. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Something along those lines. So all those kind of fancy little things you hear in there will be in those courses. So big takeaways: when you're learning this stuff, try and create a framework. It's okay to repeat ideas, especially when it's rhythm guitar and when it's lead guitar too. But it gives a song a nice framework to work from. So take that. There's links to the courses if you're interested. There's also a little promo code to take a little money off. Come back to this, check out my YouTube channel with all the instructional stuff, check out my site, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.